All right, the 49ers goals for 6 years, and then with Arizona Cardinals last season. This is obviously in response to the ACL tear for Jason Verrett. So the 49ers need a veteran cornerback. They needed one last week, so they picked up Josh Norman. This time they go back to that free agent well, and they pick up Dre Kirkpatrick. That's the big news. The side news here is that the 49ers remain interested in re-signing Richard Sherman. Obviously, you know of the incident that Richard Sherman had this offseason. So that may still take a few weeks. And you have to remember that this is a long NFL season. This is a marathon, and it is not a sprint. But the 49ers are still very much interested in bringing back Richard Sherman, who was so good for their team and for their locker room over the past 3 seasons. Well, with 16 weeks still to go, I mean, we still have a full old-length NFL season in front of us because they've expanded this to 17 games this year. There's still a long time. And the odds are that the 49ers are going to need even more depth at this cornerback position to get through the season, based on how tough has started already this year. So don't rule Richard Sherman out yet. He's still working. He's still waiting to get ready. He's been in contact with the 49ers and with John Lynch. And obviously, Dre Kirkpatrick has been in contact with the team for quite some time. This is a guy that they had in camp for a workout. Well, not in camp, but in for a workout during camp. They didn't decide to sign Dre then, but the 49ers have decided to sign him now. And this is what's going to look as I pop open our 53-man roster spreadsheet. So here we go. There it is. Maybe make it a little bit bigger, right? Yeah, that's good enough. We're going to zoom in on it to see where Dre Kirkpatrick will fit. Now, remember, because the 49ers are about to place Jason Verrett and they already placed Jalen Hurd on IR, but they're about to place Jason Verrett and Raheem Mostert on IR. 49ers have 2 spots open on their 53-man roster. Now, those moves have not yet become official, but they will become official in all likelihood tomorrow on Tuesday, and that's when the Dre Kirkpatrick signing will become official. But if you watch the YouTube channel here, you follow me on Twitter, you got the breaking news that the 49ers do plan to sign Dre Kirkpatrick, and he's going to fit right here on this roster that I've already updated. We'll put him right now at right cornerback behind Emmanuel Moseley. He's going to be the 52nd out of 53 players. I'll zoom in on it so you can see where Dre Kirkpatrick fits here, highlighted in blue. This is the cornerback room for the 49ers. Kirkpatrick will become the 52nd of 53 players currently on the 49ers 53-man roster. Now, we're not sure about Emmanuel Moseley's availability yet, coming off the hamstring here for this Sunday's game at Philadelphia. Kyle Shanahan today was pretty non-committal about that. So what do the 49ers do? Well, if you look back at this depth chart, they were confident that Josh Norman would be ready to go already this past week had they actually, tapped him and said, hey, head on out there. But I think the 49ers thought that they would handle the Lions easily, which they did up until stuff got really weird at the end. They didn't need Josh Norman to win that game. So they wanted to make sure that he had a little bit more time to absorb the playbook and work back in the tape. So Josh Norman, I think, is in line to grab a starting position if Emmanuel Moseley is not ready to go, because obviously Jason Verrett's completely out of the mix. Obviously, too, you have Deommodore Lenoir, who's down here. I have him in that backup nickelback spot. I may have to reshuffle how this all works in the cornerback room, depending on how the 49ers play this, because I thought Deommodore Lenoir played a really good game against the Detroit Lions. And if that means the 49ers are ready to start him for a second straight week, well, then you'll probably have a Lenoir and Josh Norman cornerback room, because I don't think that the 49ers are going to start Dre Kirkpatrick right away. It will be the same deal as with Josh Norman. You've got to make sure that this guy is on the wrong side of 30. Dre's going to be 32 in October. So he's a little bit younger than Norman, who's going to turn 34 this year. But you have to make sure these players are in shape because they haven't been in a training camp, that they get their legs in underneath them and that they're ready to go. So what the 49ers are doing right now with all these bodies in that cornerback and nickelback room, they're making sure that they insulate themselves from a potential disaster. You remember what happened with Brian Allen last season against Miami when the 49ers ran out of cornerbacks and had to promote someone from the practice squad. And the main insulation that the 49ers have is not even in this DB room. This is where the main insulation is. It is at the edge rushing positions. So I could just highlight the entire defensive line. But again, people need to remember this is a rush over coverage football team. That's how the 49ers have philosophically built their roster. If the pass rush falters like it did in 2020, if you lose Nick Bosa, if you lose Dee Ford, of course you're going to be putting a lot of pressure on the cornerbacks. And in that situation, bad shit can happen if you lose your top guys at the cornerback position and if you lose the immediate depth, like the 49ers did last season against Miami when Ahkello Witherspoon said that he wasn't ready to play at the start of that game after the 49ers had already suffered injuries in front of him. What happened is that Brian Allen had to play, and he got roasted behind a defensive line that wasn't ready to dominate the game from the edges. However, this season, the 49ers do have Nick Bosa. They do have Dee Ford, both of whom are fantastic against the Lions. They also have insurance policies in Sansa Medicom and Arden Key in case they need them. Of course, Eric Armstead was also great against the Lions with 9 pressures, according to PFF, and I just watched the film of that game. Those numbers weren't lying. Eric Armstead was all over the backfield. He is a force up there, operating both outside and inside, actually more snaps on the outside. So the 49ers have this treasure trove of talent on the edges. If that talent stays healthy, particularly with Bosa and Ford, there's a lot less pressure on cornerbacks, and you just need a higher floor, which is why you see the 49ers bringing in these veterans who are past their primes. Josh Norman's going to be 34, right? You look at today's signing, Dre Kirkpatrick's going to be 32. These aren't, all-pro guys in the very prime of their careers. They are guys who know the playbook or will be able to learn it very quickly and will give you acceptable level play, a floor that you can handle, something higher than what Brian Allen gave the 49ers in 2020. And this higher type of floor will work if the 49ers stay decently healthy along the defensive line. Now, they got to go back to the drawing board if they lose a guy like Nick Bosa and if they lose a guy like Dee Ford again. And that drawing board probably means, okay, Jimmy Garoppolo, go out there and score 35 points per game with the offense. That obviously would be red alert mode. The 49ers hate red alert mode last season, but Garoppolo also got hurt. And guess what? Nick Mullins was not leading that offense to 35 points per game. But my overarching point is that the 49ers are okay as long as Bosa and Ford and Fred Warner, who's also really important in this whole puzzle, stay healthy. If they stay healthy, the 49ers can mix and match, go through the bargain basement, and find a way to get some cornerbacks that can work with that pass rush in front of them. It's a rush over coverage team. That's what the Dre Kirkpatrick signing means. 49ers also have cap space to make these kinds of moves. They're not going to be expensive by any stretch. But because the 49ers restructured Jimmy Ward's deal, they now have about $7 million of room. That means Kirkpatrick could come aboard. And Richard Sherman, as he spends more time getting right, he might be able to come aboard later in the season because as you saw in week 1, anything can happen. All right, let's take some questions here about the 49ers' most recent signing. Is Kinlaw expected to be back this week? He's not expected to be back this week, but Shanahan is hoping that Javon Kinlaw is going to be back this week. In fact, Kinlaw's had 4 straight good days of rehab work on the knee, had a really good workout on Saturday in Detroit before the 49ers played on Sunday. So it's trending in the right direction for Javon Kinlaw. And that obviously is very, very important because, as Immortal says, the 49ers 1 tech and 2 tech positions along the defensive line, that's those nose tackle, defensive tackle spots need to be better. Absolutely true. Kyle Shanahan on Monday pointed out that 60 Detroit rushing yards came on 3 plays, and it was the same exact play, the same exact run up the middle. And all 3 times a different 49er was at fault. There were 2 issues. The defensive tackles were getting blasted off the line of scrimmage. The 49ers didn't have their 2 block gobblers. They had B.J. Jones, who played a good game, but all the other defensive tackles didn't play great games, especially against the run. And if you have Javon Kinlaw, you have 2 block gobblers up there in the middle to really work on taking away those first down runs. And 2, it didn't look like the 49ers had very good gap integrity behind that. The wide 9 is going to give some bigger rushing lanes up the middle just because the defensive linemen are spread out along the line of scrimmage. And that's why the 49ers have so many fast linebackers, so many former strong safeties at linebacker, but they need to be in the correct alignment. And I think I haven't seen all 22 yet. I have been able to watch some of the replay of the game, 2 times actually I've watched. And I see the defensive tackles getting blasted off the ball later in the week as I watch from that end zone angle. I think we will be able to see that the 49ers weren't properly in the right gaps against some of these runs, because Kyle Shanahan brought it up today and he emphasized this is a full 11-man effort that needs to happen to stop some of these runs. So 1 tech, 2 tech need to be better, but so do the linebackers, so does that whole operation from DeMeco Ryans. And let's be honest, it wasn't a terrible effort from the 49ers. They held the Lions to 17 until stuff got weird while it was a blowout. You view that game in terms of what the 49ers did well early and then that really anomalous ending yesterday. I answered this at the start of the show. I'll answer it again. No, this doesn't change the likelihood of a Richard Sherman reunion. This is a long season. The 49ers still have 16 games to go. Richard Sherman and the 49ers remain in contact. And if and when the time comes that the 49ers need more cornerback depth, he might be in a better spot to come aboard and contribute to them later on. I can't think of a better thing than a fresh Richard Sherman late in the season if the 49ers need him. Right now, this is, I think, a playoff team. I get it. It's going to be a dogfight to get through this NFC West, but the 49ers have talent right now. It's still a championship-ready roster, even without Jason Verrett. They are rearranging some of the chairs right now to make sure everything fits. But imagine the 49ers in week 14 or week 15 starting to get really banged up, and they have Richard Sherman on speed dial, and Richard Sherman comes in at a week 1 freshness level. I mean, that would be amazing because in the past, the 49ers, especially the playoffs in 2019, Richard Sherman was starting to run on fumes. And that's the tough part of a marathon NFL schedule. So this season, the 49ers stand to get Jeff Wilson back in October. He'll have fresh legs at the running back position. They stand to potentially sign Richard Sherman later in the season. He can have fresh legs at the cornerback position. And they along the defensive line, this is huge. They stand to get a guy like Maurice Hurst back, who can have fresh legs in October from his high ankle sprain suffered in the preseason. And he can help them out, around week 6 or so, week 7. And I haven't even talked about Raheem Mostert, who is going to be out for about 8 weeks. If Mostert is indeed out for that length of time, which is the estimate at this point, with a chip and some of the cartilage in his knee, it's going to require scope. If Mostert does come back in exactly 8 weeks, his return will come on November 15th, which is Monday Night Football for the 49ers at home against the Rams, right in the middle of the season. So this is why you try to build depth, and this is why you have to work to try to get these guys back, because you realize the season is a marathon and not a sprint. And if you play your cards right, you can actually get reinforcements that are fresh and healthy later in the season. I'm going to see if we have a couple more questions. Yeah, we'll talk. I'm going to make a separate video about this Brandon Aiyuk thing. Or maybe I'll just divide this video up into something else. Yeah, anyway, why don't we do that? Brandon Aiyuk. People need to chill about Brandon Aiyuk and Trey Sermon. And I am not accusing the person asking this question. I'm not chilling. I think it's a very reasonable question. But a lot of people are not as calm as the questioner in this case on social media. Everybody relax. Stop being so conspiratorial. All these conspiracy theories are why people got the Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo thing so wrong. It's why they got the Mac Jones, Trey Lance thing so wrong. Everybody thought there was some kind of grand conspiracy at play that didn't make any sense in the larger picture. Well, let me tell you what. If you actually use common sense, 49ers were picking Trey Lance the whole way, not Mac Jones. If you actually use common sense, the 49ers are starting Jimmy Garoppolo the whole way, not Trey Lance. If you actually use common sense, 49ers were using 2 quarterbacks the whole way, both of them, a 2-quarterback system, Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance. Well, let's apply common sense to the next issue that people are freaking out about, and that is Brandon Aiyuk and Trey Sermon. Brandon Aiyuk got I think 15, 16 snaps at the receiver position. I think 15, 16 pass running snaps, because Garoppolo had 27 dropbacks in that game. It was just as many as Trent Sherfield. Yes, he wasn't targeted as much. And yes, Aiyuk has taken a step back on the depth chart, but Shanahan has repeated that this is only temporary. And it makes complete sense because Brandon Aiyuk was missing practice due to a hamstring strain over the past 10 days. Yes, Shanahan was also upset with a couple Brandon Aiyuk drops during the preseason. Remember that one laser from Trey Lance against the Chiefs that Aiyuk couldn't hold on to? That certainly didn't make Kyle Shanahan, who's a former college wide receiver at the University of Texas, very happy. Neither did Aiyuk's second drop. This one, coming off a Jimmy Garoppolo throw, it was high, but Kyle Shanahan thought that Aiyuk should have hauled it in against the Chargers on that first drive on 3rd down. So combine the hamstring strain with a couple drops and the fact that Trent Sherfield has impressed so much for the 49ers, it means that Brandon Aiyuk took a slight step back on the depth chart for week 1. But guess what? Again, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a long season, and this is the long play from Kyle Shanahan. Whereas Deebo Samuel was the featured receiver in week 1, 9 catches for 187 yards, I guarantee you, and you can save and screenshot this part of the video, I guarantee you that there will come a time this season when Brandon Aiyuk is the 49ers featured receiver and not Deebo Samuel. You need bodies, you need longevity, and most of all, you need practice time. And Brandon Aiyuk right now missed a lot of it due to that hamstring strain. The other thing to not freak out about is the role of Trey Sermon. So many hot takes. Oh my God, I can't believe that the 49ers traded up to pick a running back in the 3rd round. Well, how can you be upset that the 49ers acquired another running back who they believe in when running backs on this team are dropping like flies? Raheem Mostert is now out for 8 weeks. Jeff Wilson is already on the shelf. Of course, the 49ers couldn't keep Wayne Gallman on cut down day. Well, now they only have 3 healthy running backs. Right now, you're dealing with Elijah Mitchell, who had a great game, your 6th round pick. You're dealing with JaMycal Hasty. And you're dealing with Trey Sermon. And guess what? Kyle Shanahan needs at least 3 running backs to be active on his 53-man roster or his 48-man roster every single week. So he has the bare minimum now. I'm sure the 49ers are happy to have Trey Sermon because he's automatically going to be active this week. As far as him being inactive in week 1, so much stuff can happen that we don't know about. There could be a disciplinary issue. There could be a schematic issue that Kyle Shanahan is looking game to game for. That's likely what this was. He's likely looking at what the Lions bring to the table and what Elijah Mitchell can bring to the table for the 49ers to counteract the Detroit Lions game plan. And guess what? Kyle Shanahan made the right call because Elijah Mitchell exploded. And I saw a cool stat. I think he was the first running back drafted in the 5th round or later to go for over 100 yards, maybe ever or since some other time in week 1. Pretty cool stuff from Elijah Mitchell to head out there and show that he's a tailor-made fit for Kyle Shanahan's scheme. That Louisiana offense, the Raging Cajuns, where Elijah Mitchell ran, they run the outside zone. They emulate the 49ers. The 49ers had Elijah Mitchell high up on their list of running backs who could deliver in the outside zone, and it paid off. Trey Sermon and Elijah Mitchell don't play the exact same role. Sermon ran a lot of outside zone at Ohio State, but they ran a little bit more inside zone as well. Sermon's more of the tenderizer. He's more of the Tevin Coleman role. He'll be able to deliver early in possessions or on early downs, right? I think Elijah Mitchell, when we watched him against the Lions, a lot of his running styles seem to resemble Raheem Mostert's to me. He's going to be your pure outside zone runner, one cut up the field. Trey Sermon's going to handle a different kind of role, and don't worry, he's going to be active moving forward. Again, freaking out about actives and inactives on a week 1 basis is absolutely insane. I get that people are bored. I get that people love their fantasy team. I get that people bet on their fantasy team. I get that people want drama, all of the above, but it's just stupid to obsess over it because this is a long season. The 49ers have never started fewer than 4 running backs in a season under Kyle Shanahan. So guess what? There's a very good chance that Trey Sermon ends this season as the starter. There's a very good chance that Trey Sermon is the starter in week 2 or week 3. Either way, he's going to be active, and we have a long way to figure out how this roster is going to mix and match. So freaking out about Aiyuk and Sermon is just like the definition. It's a neurosis. It's insane. It's something that only happens on Twitter. Maybe people are trying to sound important. Maybe people care too much about their fantasy team. Just don't do it. Just wait and see what happens with Aiyuk and Sermon, and you can thank me later for that. Anyway, Dre Kirkpatrick to the 49ers, and that's about it for today. Hopefully we get some more news heading this week as far as injuries go. Only minor day-to-day ones aside from the big ones that we talked about coming from the game. That's Mostert and Verrett. Everybody else should be ready to go for the Eagles. And we'll talk much more about the 49ers and the Eagles as this week progresses. Everybody take care.